Chicago should tank. And they should go deeper than that. They should blow it up. Copyright Kevin O'Connor. Yeah, I have three trades right now that save Chicago, put them in the Wembanyama sweepstakes, give them a do-over, and they're ready to go. Trade number one, DeRozan and Vucevic to the Lakers for Russ and those 2 firsts. And make the 27 unprotected, make the 29 top 5 protected. Then trade Lavine to the Knicks. Lavine's coming off, the knee injury in May. He hasn't looked the same. But if you're the Knicks, you're like, well, we would have signed Lavine for the max in the summer, so we'll get him anyway. So do Toppin and expirings, and maybe take them back the Fournier trade, and maybe do like a top 4 protected first next year, something like that. And you had Zach Lavine.
I wasn't going to give any attention to this nonsense and give it any more views than it deserves, but this has started turning into an accumulation of things from a number of fans and analysts alike that are out there saying the Bulls need to blow this team up ASAP. And it's funny to me because people like Bill Simmons, or the article that recently came out from The Ringer as well, it's shocking to me that these people have these types of platforms and get paid to do this as their full-time job with such little thought and critical thinking for their quote-unquote analysis and coming up with these ridiculous trade scenarios, when everyday average fans like myself have better wherewithal to understand how ludicrous it is for the Bulls to blow up their team with just a quarter of the way into the season. And I know some Bulls fans are probably going to disagree with me on this because I have seen a number of people saying this team sucks, DeRozan and Lavine aren't true competitors and can't carry a franchise to a title. Blow it up now, this team is going nowhere. Might as well tank for the stacked draft class of 2023. Well, I'm here to tell you why the Bulls blowing it up and tanking makes absolutely zero sense and would be one of the worst strategies we have seen in years, and that's what we'll be talking about in this video. Also, a big shout out to the sponsor of this video, Underdog Fantasy, but more on that in a little bit. So what's going on, everyone? You were listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Now, there are a lot of things to remember here and consider about the Bulls' current roster, what they have available to them for the future in the form of draft picks and salary cap. Now, of course, the natural thing for media pundits to do when they see a team getting off to a slow start, which should have been somewhat expected for the Bulls given they're without Lonzo Ball, but we'll talk about that more later. But when a team that is expected to quote-unquote win now gets off to a slow start, you combine that with the fall off from the Bulls at the end of last season. And because tanking is such a big deal this year with the stacked draft class this coming off season, the reactionary response is, well, said team should just blow up the roster, start over, try and be bad this season by losing a lot of games and hope they get a top pick. Here's the problem with that if you're the Bulls. And I know a lot of you already know this, but apparently a lot of non-Bulls fans have forgotten. The Bulls do not have their pick if it falls outside of the top 4. The Bulls traded their 2023 first-round pick to the Orlando Magic in the Nikola Vucevic trade. It is top 4 protected, which was smart on part of the Bulls front office because you can only move up into the top 4 no matter where you fall in the lottery, whether you finish with the worst record or the 14th worst record, the team that had the best record that didn't make the playoffs. And the fact of the matter is, even if you try and be bad as you possibly can, even if you finish with the worst record in the NBA, there is still no guarantee that you will get a top 4 pick. You can, at the worst, get the 5th pick being with the worst record in the league, although the chances are somewhat small. So even in the event the Bulls tank and finish with the worst record in the NBA, there is still a 48% chance that they do not land in the top 4 and would have to ship that pick over to Orlando anyway. There is still only a 14% chance of landing the number 1 pick even when you have the worst record in the league, which we all know that's really the prize because everyone wants Victor Wembanyama. That's who everyone is tanking for. 14% chance. You're going to blow up your entire roster for a 14% chance of landing the number 1 pick and a 52% chance of actually being able to keep your pick at all. And again, that's only if the Bulls finish with the worst record in the league. The Bulls have already won too many games to be able to find themselves all the way down to the bottom. Even if they do try and tank and race to the bottom of the entire NBA, teams like the Magic, Pistons, Spurs, Rockets, they're all trying to do the same thing. And already, even this early into the season, have between a 4 and 5 game advantage in the tank for Wemby sweepstakes. So everything that I just laid out in terms of the odds for the Bulls of keeping their pick is the best case scenario in the event they blow up and finish with the worst record in the NBA. But we all know that that's not going to happen. They've already won too many games thus far this season. If anything, they're looking at finishing with the 3rd or 4th worst record in the league at best, which sounds weird to say at best for the worst record in the league. And in that instance, the odds of the Bulls losing their pick to the Magic becomes even greater at 57% chance of the pick falling outside of the top 4. That's the thing about the draft lottery. Crazy things can happen and nothing is guaranteed. The Bulls have gotten unlucky in the past too, when they tried to tank for Zion and finished with the 4th worst record in the league, and were jumped by the Pelicans, Grizzlies, and Lakers and ended up getting the number 7 pick instead, which got them Coby White instead of Zion. The other reason why it makes zero sense for the Bulls to blow up the roster is this is literally year 2 of this team being together, and had the unfortunate circumstances of injuries hitting them last season. And yes, the Bulls have had a really bad start. You don't have to tell me to be critical of this team. I have time and time again this season been critical of what we have seen from the Bulls thus far. They have absolutely been disappointing this year, and there are a lot of things that need to be fixed with this organization. But just pulling the plug and hitting the reset button is not one of them. It's way too early in the season to do that. We still haven't seen what this team could be like when Lonzo Ball comes back. And one thing some people might not realize, the Bulls as of right now have had the hardest strength of schedule in the NBA according to basketballreference.com. First in the league in strength of schedule. Like, the schedule is eventually going to lighten up. Lonzo will eventually come back, although I have serious doubts as to whether he'll return this season. It is so reactionary to just say, this team sucks, trade your stars, trade him now, tank now, and just hope the pick lands in the top 4 so you can keep it. In what world does that make sense? 21 games into the 2nd year of this crew being together, playing without their starting point guard, and having the hardest schedule in the NBA. No. The other thing I'll say about some of these trades in which Bill Simmons mentioned that would save the Bulls, trading DeRozan and Vucevic for Westbrook and 2 future firsts. Future firsts, that would be in 2027 and 2029. 5 and 7 years from now, because that makes sense for rebuilding. Take on a bad contract, but is expiring, so you free up cap space, and a couple of first-round picks that won't convey for years. Makes total sense. Like, this is why I get frustrated when I see quote-unquote professional media analysts who literally study and follow the game for a living, and they put out these god-awful trade proposals that they think make sense. A trade has to make sense for both parties, and if all the Bulls are able to get for DeMar and Vooch as Westbrook and 2 future first years from now, the Bulls are going to laugh and hang up the phone. Like, for the Bulls' struggles right now, they absolutely can get more for DeMar DeRozan alone, let alone including Vucevic, if they were actually looking to trade either of those players. Then the other one that was preposterous, trading Zach Lavine for Obi freaking Toppin and a protected first. Zach Lavine for Toppin and a protected first. I mean, no one has been more disappointed than me in Zach's performance so far this season, especially after getting paid a max contract and hasn't at all looked like the player we remembered when he was a first-time All-Star. But the man has more value than that, and the Bulls just signed him for 5 years. They're not going to turn around and quickly move him for an overrated, inefficient forward who is only 3 years younger than Zach, by the way. People think he's younger because he was just drafted in 2020, but the guy was a 4-year college player and a protected pick, which, knowing how trash the Knicks are, probably is going to stay protected and take years to convey depending on how strong the protections are. Like, no, I don't care how incompetent a front office is, which I don't think the Bulls front office is incompetent, but even the worst of the worst executives are not doing that. And again, the goal of all of this, making these trades, get rid of the top players so you can be bad for this season to tank for a top pick that isn't even guaranteed because your pick is only top 4 protected. Also, what message are you sending to the rest of the players around the NBA that, hey, when the going gets tough in Chicago, any kind of struggle, the front office will just turn on a dime and ship you out, even after overhauling the roster less than 18 months ago, and even trading away their franchise player that they just signed to an extension. It doesn't inspire confidence in future free agents wanting to sign with the Bulls. If the approach is, well, things aren't going the way we thought, we're going to reset without even giving the group a chance. You can't attract free agents that way. This is the kind of stuff that the previous regimes would do that gave the Bulls franchise a bad name with zero loyalty. And then, I've also said this before, but I've always said tanking is never a good strategy because being in a perpetual state of losing is horrible for team culture. Even when you do tank, it's never guaranteed that you're going to get a high pick that you want. And then also, you begin to lose interest from the fans when your team is just always looking to be bad in a perpetual state of rebuilding. So no, the Bulls should absolutely not blow this team up, not when it's this early in the season, and not when the Bulls don't have their pick. It's that simple. Now, if by the end of the season, the Bulls are still trending in the way that we're seeing right now, and let's say they miss the playoffs, yeah, then it's time to start considering hitting the reset button, because if after this year it's still not working and it's not working at all, it's probably never going to work. Anyway, I would love to hear what you guys thought. I have a feeling a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this point based on the comments I've seen from Bulls fans recently, but let me know in the comments anyway, and as always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.